Hi everyone, this is Annie Williams, and today I'm so excited to share the new Spellbinders 12 Days of Stitchmas Advent Calendar. Now if you don't want to know what's inside this awesome crafty box today, you'll want to turn this video off right now because we are going to open up all 12 doors today. Here's a look at the outside of the box. It's a really nice sturdy box, and inside there are 12 generously sized doors, and each contains a holiday-themed stitching die set. So let's rip this thing open and see what's inside. Day 1 is this really beautiful Christmas tree ornament. It's a 3-tiered tree that you can stitch up, and it comes with a garland and a star for the top. Day 2, these really pretty candles. There's 2 candles and some holly berries and holly leaves to add at the bottom. Day 3 is this 2-tiered ornament. Really pretty, just 3 pieces. Real simple stitching, but really beautiful. Day 4, a really pretty Noel sentiment with an ornament as the O. Day 5, this beautiful snowflake. This might be my favorite. Really intricate and really beautiful. Day 6 is an oversized gift box. Really, really good size. Will take up most of a card front. Day 7 is really cute bell with the little clanger that swings back and forth. Day 8, another sentiment, joy, with an ornament for the O. Really cute. Dropped it here. Now I'm picking it back up. There you go. Now you can see it. And let's look at day 9. This is what we're going to create projects with. A really simple ornament shape, but really good for a beginner project. So we're going to create a card and a gift tag with that one. Day 10, really cute stocking. I can see so many ways to use this. This is really, really cute. Day 11, snowflake sweater. And you can remove that snowflake design if you want to and just have the sweater design. And last but not least, day 12, gorgeous layered angel. Really pretty. I've seen this one layered up and it's beautiful. So here's one more look at all 12 sets. Like I said, they are really generously sized. They definitely serve as a focal point on your card. The snowflake is probably my favorite, really beautiful, but I also love that they included some of these sentiment dies. So the Noel and the joy, and very large, can fill a whole card front and serve as, your main focal point and sentiment. Now, one more thing I want to show you before we get started on the projects is the 12 Days of Stitchmas add-on stitch-along kit. It's full of all the supplies you need to create projects with any of the stitching dies in the Advent calendar. It contains a wide variety of embroidery floss, both in solid and variegated colors. There's also a full spool of metallic gold and silver thread. This is a needle minder, along with some needles, small foam squares, a needle threader, the Spectrum AB gems, and a stamp and die set that you can create your own bobbins to organize your threads. That's a really cool add-on. They've also included a sheet of the glitter foam, the gold glitter foam, and several cardstocks from their cardstock line, all in really cool matching colors. It's a really pretty color scheme that they've got here. And you've also got brushed gold and brushed silver cardstocks. I'm going to be creating a simple gift tag first today, and then we'll create a matching card. Here I've got the 12 Days of Stitchmas stitch-along kit, and I'm taking the silver metallic thread and a couple of pieces of cardstock from the kit to start. There are some beautiful colors of cardstocks included in this kit, but I've chosen kind of a frosty theme with some of the blues and silvers. So this top cardstock is Raindrop, we've got Cosmic Sky, and Brushed Silver cardstock. I've cut the ornament backer and the hanger out of brushed silver cardstock and the stitching inlay out of raindrop cardstock. Now I'm going to stitch the entire design with a single strand of silver metallic thread, and I'm doing this because I'm going for kind of a simple and elegant look. If you need help threading your needle, there is a needle threader included in the stitch along kit, but usually the metallic thread doesn't give you too much of a problem. Now here I've got my die cut and I'm looking for a good place to start my stitching. I usually like to start next to a closed space so that I have somewhere that I can adhere the thread to the back of the die cut with tape. I'm using some of the 1/4 inch Best Ever craft tape. That's my favorite for using with stitching dies. And I'm just putting a tiny piece of tape to hold the thread in place on the back of the die cut. I try not to cover up any of the holes, but really if I end up covering some of them and I'm stitching, you can't see it in the end anyway, so I don't worry about it too much. Now I'm just going to do simple stitches. I'm going to follow the guidelines that are included on the die, and I'm not doing anything fancy here. I love that so many of the die sets in this year's advent calendar are simple patterns. So if you're a beginner, they're not difficult to stitch. You can just follow the guidelines like I'm doing here. But if you're more experienced and you want to do some more elaborate stitching, you're certainly able to do that too. As I get to the end of this row, I'm going to show you how I kind of travel to the next area of stitching so that you can't see my thread from the front of the die. So I turn it over and I kind of tuck my needle and thread behind a couple of the stitches, and then I come up through the hole of the next area, and this kind of hides the thread from the front. You want to pick a spot where the angle will keep your thread from showing through any of the holes in the stitching pattern. Now I've run out of thread, so I've got to tie off my end, and this is how I do it. I tuck the thread behind a couple stitches, pull it through almost all the way, but leave a loop, and then stick my needle through that loop and pull it tight. And I do that twice to knot it off, and then I'll just trim the end. Now when I start the next set of stitches, I'm going to do the same thing, just thread with a single strand of the silver metallic thread. And I've got a much smaller spot to stick my tape this time, but I'm not going to worry about it because like I said, after I've stitched through all the holes, if I've covered any of the holes with the tape, I generally can't see it in the end. Oh, here I've dropped my thread. I do that quite a bit. And I'm stitching through to the end. You can see that that tiny bit of yellow that was showing up through one of the holes earlier is no longer showing up. I'm going to tuck my thread one more time behind this section before I move to the very last section of stitching now. And as I finish up, it's starting to look pretty good. Now I'll tie off my thread on the back once more. Again, using that method, pull it through almost all the way, then stick your needle through the loop that you've left and pull it tight, and then do it a second time, pull it tight, and it's tied off and you can trim with your scissors. And here is the stitched ornament. So to adhere the backer to my stitching die, I'm going to add a lot of liquid glue to the back of this. There's a lot of tape and texture and thread and knots, and I want to make sure it sticks really well. After I place the backer on the back and I line it up really well, I'm going to place it between two heavy books while it dries. While we're waiting for that to dry, I'm going to create the rest of our tag. This is some Cosmic Sky cardstock, and I've added some anti-static powder to the bottom. I've got the Merry and Bright stamp set from the House Mouse Holiday Collection, and I've taken one of the sentiments, and I'm going to stamp that in the clear embossing ink on the bottom of the cardstock panel. Once that's stamped, I bring out a coffee filter to catch my embossing powder. And here I've got some of the Spellbinders white embossing powder, and I'm just going to sprinkle that over, tap it off, and go melt that with my heat tool. Once that's smooth and melted, I'm going to take the tag die from the Create a Decorative Tag die set and place it over the panel. And I'm going to tape it in place so that the sentiment is at the bottom of the tag. And here is our finished tag. And we're ready to assemble our tag, so I'll bring the ornament back. It's nice and dry and flat now. We'll need to add the topper, so I'll get some liquid glue and just add that topper on. And once that's positioned, I can place some of the small foam squares from the Stitch Along kit on the back. I'll use about 5 foam squares, just position them around the back of the ornament. And then we'll try to find the exact right spot. I keep moving it just a little bit this way and that way, and there it is. Now I've taken some of the blue embroidery floss from the Stitch Along kit to use as my tag holder, and I've looped it through the hole in the top of the tag, and I'm just going to trim it off there. And here is our simple and elegant gift tag. Alright, so for our next project, I thought we would create a card to match, but add a few extra details to kind of elevate it a little bit. I've cut the ornament backers out of brushed silver cardstock again, and one of the ornaments out of raindrop cardstock, but I've also added in an ornament cut out of waterfall cardstock to kind of add a little bit more color to this card. It still sticks with that little frosty color scheme I've got though. I'm adding some peacock feathers distress ink around the edges of this first die cut, and I'm adding it pretty heavy to give it lots of dimension, kind of a bold look. Now for the blue ornament, I'm going to add some Blueprint Sketch distress ink around the edges. Again, a pretty dark color compared to the cardstock color, because I want to really have a lot of dimension and a lot of color on this card. Another way that I'm going to create a bolder look with both of these ornaments is that I'm going to use 3 strands of white embroidery thread to stitch the entire design on each ornament. Now normally I would use 2 strands of thread on most stitching dies, but in this case I really want to accentuate the stitching. I really want it to be in your face, and adding that extra strand really seems to kind of bulk up the stitching. And like before, I'm just gonna stitch following the guidelines. Nothing fancy. These dies make it really easy for even a beginner to create a beautiful pattern. You really don't need any knowledge of stitching. I'll tell you, I didn't have any before I did this. And I love stitching on paper now. I won't do any other kind of stitching, but I do love stitching on paper. And normally I take projects like this in the car with me when we're going on long road trips with the kids. And it gives me something to take away the boredom a little bit, or I'll sit in front of the TV doing this, because you really don't need to concentrate too much. You know, all the work is done for you. They show you exactly where to put your needle. I mean, all you need to do is pick a cardstock color and a thread color and go to town, and you can create something beautiful in just a matter of minutes. Alright, so we're finishing up on this ornament. I'm not going to go through the stitching on the aqua ornament because I think we've we've bored you enough with that by now. But I'll finish this one up. I'll tie it up on the back, and then we'll get to embellishing it next. Here are my 2 completely stitched ornaments. I'm going to adhere the backers first. So again, lots and lots of liquid glue. Line it up and then place it between two heavy books or anything else heavy. Now I'm going to work on the aqua ornament. A ton of liquid glue. Line up the backer and stick it between the heavy books. After a few minutes, they are flat and dry, and we can add the hangers on top with a little bit more liquid glue. Now to these ornaments, I'm going to embellish them a little bit further. I'm going to pull out the gemstones that came in the Stitch Along kit. They are a beautiful kind of holographic gemstone, and I'm going to place one of the medium-sized gemstones over the center hole of each little stitched portion. It kind of just adds a little bit more sparkle to each ornament. Very festive, very pretty. And the color of these gemstones just kind of takes on whatever color cardstock and thread you're using. So it's the perfect color to really use on any project you've got. So here I've got my two ornaments finally finished. And we're going to work on the rest of the card. First, I've got a top folding A2 sized white card base, and I've embossed another piece of white cardstock with the Vintage Ornaments 3D embossing folder. This is a panel I trimmed to 4 inches by 5¼ inches. I'm going to add foam tape over most of the back of this panel. A whole lot of foam tape, but I'm doing that because I don't like a saggy card front, and also because I'm going to adhere the hangers, the threads for these ornaments to the back, and it helps to have a lot of foam tape back there. So add another piece of foam tape behind each ornament, and I'm actually going to use more of the silver metallic thread to hang these ornaments. So I'll just stick it through the hole of each ornament hanger, and I've probably cut way too much thread for what I'm going to need. But it's always better to have too much than too little. I'm going to thread it through the aqua ornament now. And what I'm going to do is peel off the backing from the embossed background first. And then stick first the blue ornament on the front of the panel. And pull the thread on the hanger really tight. And then stick it to that foam behind the background and trim it off. And I'm going to take the aqua ornament and do the same thing, layering it above the blue ornament and pulling it behind the background. And now that they're both adhered and it's all sticky, I'm going to just stick it to my card base and smooth it down. To finish off my card, I'm going to add a sentiment from the A Merry Little Christmas Sentiments Glimmer Plate set. I've foiled this in cobalt hot foil. It goes with my frosty theme, goes with the blues, and I've added a little foam tape behind it, and we're just going to place it in the bottom corner of the card. And here is our matching card and gift tag set. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this look at the 12 Days of Stitchmas Advent Calendar. Let me know in the comments what your favorite stitching die set was, and happy stitching!